critical thing for rural women is to make sure that they're looking after themselves. As the expression, to make sure you've put on your own oxygen mask before you help other people. Being agile, not fragile, really means that you've got that, I guess, a suppleness and an ability to sway in the wind and not be blown over. I think it's important that we actually learn skills and techniques for managing the feelings that can sometimes be quite overwhelming, particularly when you're going through change and crisis.
In crisis there is opportunity. I mean, the classic example of that, I think there was more millionaires made in the Great Depression than any other period in history. Having something to strive towards and having that sense that you're moving forward with your life is very, very important for your well-being.
This webinar series is an opportunity to get some new tools, but also to look at, are you maintaining the tools you've already got? How do you be in a position where you can take advantage of what the opportunities are coming out of a crisis?
Not only giving people great information about well-being, but also giving them some great information about how to improve themselves professionally. People have shown remarkable agility to deal with extraordinary demands, but it's also important that while people are doing that and running on full revs, that they are looking after themselves at the same time so they can maintain that resilience over time.
I think one of the important things about this webinar series is that the people involved understand rural Queensland, they understand rural people. You can have privacy, you don't need to identify yourself when you're asking a question. There's lots of opportunities, but you need to look after yourself so that you can actually take advantage of those opportunities and be in a position to look after the people around you and make sure they're ready for them too.
And share some experiences. So it's a little bit of what happens on Zoom stays on Zoom, apart from the fact that others are going to be watching it later. So let's just keep that in mind. So the first thing that I would love for you to do is actually take a piece of paper or write on your computer, whatever it is that you're doing. But what I would really love for you to do is to take a couple of notes, make a list about what's important to you. And once you've written your notes, if you want to pop a bit of that in the chat as well, that would be really helpful. So what is it that's important to you? I'm going to pop a few of mine in chat, but I'm also really keen for others too, if you have made a bit of a note yourself. Oh, I better put my husband in. So we've got a bit of a list around what's important to us, and people are also putting in who is important to us: our family, our friends, our husbands, our community, our QREN network, all of the rest of it. So this is really important, and the reason that I want to start tonight thinking about what is really important to us is because we want to actually be able to think about how would others know that? How would we see that in your day-to-day life, in how you show up, in how you invest your time as volunteers, and maybe even in terms of how you invest your money in memberships or other activities that you might do. So we really want to keep coming back to this piece around what's important for us. And now that might seem like a weird way to start a networking conversation. So I just want us to be really clear when we think about, when I say the term, you know, networking, or when you saw the topic for the webinar this evening, what sort of springs to mind when we're talking about networking? If there's some people that want to unmute yourselves, feel free, if you know how to put your hand up using Zoom. Otherwise, feel free to pop it into chat. But if I talk about, you know, what this term of networking means for you, what springs to mind? Maddie's got connections there. What are some of the other things that spring to mind with networking? So there's some really cool stuff coming through on this chat, right? Chatting with like-minded people, a village, progressing, beginning new relationships. Great. I am hanging out with my kind of people. This would have been really awkward. It would have been about now where I went, sorry, on the wrong Zoom session. I'll see you another night. So we are in the right crowd, right? And there is no surprise that we are all kind of putting similar things, yeah? So what people haven't said is, you know, it's about, you know, going to an event with 15 business cards and chucking them at the first 15 people you see and then bowling out the door. You know, there's none of this sense of networking anymore. And I'm not really sure that I ever really had many experiences of that sort of thing. But what we are actually talking about when it comes to networking is this connection piece. It is about what can I offer, and equally, what do I need? And I don't have children. We know that a few of you on the call do. I'm going to suggest that sometimes you're really good, all of you mothers on the line, you're awesome at giving. When anybody says, what do you need? Or sometimes asking for support, that can sometimes be a challenge, right? So I want to work through a little bit of that, both from a business and a personal perspective. But let's be really clear, this networking piece is equally around generosity. If we talk about, you know, why we do it, what we do, what's important to us, this piece around generosity, we want to be generous with our, with what we can offer in terms of whether it's ideas, support, you know, whatever it might be. What we actually end up talking is about a lot of our values. So already in what people have put into the comments, you can see the values that are important to you. Yeah, family, connection, learning, knowledge, collaboration, lots and lots and lots of stuff. Yeah. So what I'd really be keen for you to do is just have a look at that list of what was important to you and just pop beside it any of the values that have come through. So does your list, is there a value that identifies with that? Does that make sense? So if you've got lots of particular activities or particular things that you've listed that are important to you, maybe that ties back to faith. Faith is something that's really important to you, or depending on what, or, you know, faith is a value that underlies that. If you've got other bits and pieces, it might be that honesty or openness, or, you know, some of these values. But I just want to give you a moment. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but I just wanted to give you a chance to, again, have a look at that list that you've written around what's important to you, and just see if there's any values that come out in terms of what you notice now looking at it with that light. And I'm going to turn my heater off because now I'm slowly cooking here. Okay, so what I'm hoping, I just want us to work through a couple of things and then just explore what actually comes up from this evening. So there is no right or wrong. There are no prizes for who has the most beautiful picture at the end of the night. This is for you. And really what we're wanting to be able to do is to trigger some thoughts that you can then reflect on while you're driving to town, while you're walking, while you're having conversations with other family members perhaps. So what I'm kind of hoping that this evening can be is a chance to do some activity have some conversation, and really leave you with some opportunities to reflect and digest some of what comes from this evening. So that's really what we want to do over the next sort of half an hour or so. So what I would love for you to do is to get a blank piece of paper, regardless of how big. Here's one I prepared earlier. And what I'd love for you to do on that piece of paper is to write any sort of, just write a list, basically, if you, of any of the networks that you are part of. When we talk about networks, let's just define this a little bit. For me at the moment, a network is anything that you invest time or money into. So that can be pretty wide ranging. And whether you, this will determine who of us are lumpers and splitters in the room, and how we all do our artistic things. But can I get you just for a minute or two to sit there and write down the list of networks that you are part of? Sorry, Tim, I think I just realised I've been sending stuff that I thought was going to the chat to you personally. That would have seemed weird. So talk to me about what we've got on our list. What are some of the networks that you're part of? A few people happy to take themselves off mute and share with me, or will I play Zoom roulette and pick a few people? Kristen Pierce, what about you? What are some of the, are you able to unmute yourself and tell us a couple of the networks you're part of?
Yes, so the first one through work is Sisters of the North.
Yep.
Family business in Topex to Room. Investing time in my family, and then as an outlet we invest a lot of time and money into like horses and camp drafting and competition.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kristen. Do you want to pass the Zoom roulette to somebody else? Who would you like to hear from?
I would love to hear from Sarah Cox.
Now we get to hear who's really part of the webinar, who's actually watching the 7:30 report at the same time. You get to pick somebody else. Kristen?
Oh, sorry, I said Sarah Cox if she's here.
No,
she's having trouble unmuting.
Heather Johnson, what about you? Are you there?
Yep, I'm here, Julia.
Hello.
I've got Huron. I have Gad, which is guided autobiography. I have my tribe, so that includes my family, friends, everyone I'm in touch with regularly, generally in Facebook, but it's still regular. Work, school, and a local gardening group.
Excellent. You want to pass it on to one more person?
More, but I can't remember.
You'll
okay,
add
I'm
to
going to
this
throw it
list
over
as we
to
go.
Andrea Chamberlain.
Thanks. I started off with Melinda, homeschoolers, family, my job, my new business. Seems I'm embedded in engaged community at the moment in various ways. Big ideas, rural, LinkedIn, ex-junkheads, LinkedIn, yeah.
So ladies and our couple of gents, there will be some on the list that's been read out that will also be on your list, right? Most of us will have Kieran on our network list. If we don't, quickly write it down. Some of us might have Big Ideas Rural, we might have gardening clubs ourselves, all of the rest of it, right? So there'll be, for a lot of us on here, we will have similar networks. Part of what we want to be able to do is to really be able to get some clarity around what of our networks are serving us at the moment. And if you've got networks that you're part of that are no longer serving us, tonight's your night to work out how you might want to actually ditch them off your list. And these are the people, when I say this, there's lots of you that have still got young children. That's fairly normal for you to still be part of the P&C committee or part of school events. I have talked to women whose kids have finished uni and they're like, I can't get off the kindy committee. I don't know what to do. How am I still on this kindy committee when my child's 30 and I have grandchildren? I'm like, you need to learn to say no. Let's work through this, you know, let's practice how we can do this, because that's probably not serving you anymore. In some communities, it may well be, and I'm not suggesting we all need to ditch our kindy committees, but what we really want to be able to do is make sure that where we're at now with what's important to us now is showing up in our networks. That's where we're getting to spend our time. That's who we're spending our time with. Does that make sense to people? Yep, getting a few nods here. Okay. So what I want us to be able to do is have a look at your what's important to you list and have a look at your list of networks, the list that you wrote of the networks that you're involved with. And I want to see how much of that actually shows up. So if family is important to you, we've obviously connected them. Heather called it tribe, others called it family, you know, so our family is going to have shown up on our network. If education's important to you, how does that show up on your network? Andrea talked about Malanda homeschooling. Somebody might be involved with ICPA. Somebody might be doing something else, yeah? So what I want you to be able to do is actually down your network list, just tick beside what aligns to what's important to you, and if there's any gaps on our network list, they're the ones that we want to have a look at next. Does that activity make sense? So often what happens is we find out what our networks are. Generally, I'm reminded of my full list of networks when my credit card expires, and I get all of these emails from people going, you haven't renewed your subscription. And I go, why did I ever have this subscription? So that's one time when we might do a bit of a review of our networks and our various memberships and our various subscriptions to things. But what we want to be able to do is realize that things change. We change. Where we want to invest our time and energy may also change. And from a business perspective, we need to be making sure that they are always serving us and that we are able to contribute, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you are like me. I'm really happy to contribute to activities in my community. I'm really happy to volunteer on boards from a local to a national level, knowing that it's a volunteer capacity and knowing it will take time. I have no issue doing any of that, as long as I am 110% confident and sure that it aligns with what's important to me. Yeah. So what I don't want to do is get stuck in the grey where I say yes to something and then regret it because I never should have said yes in the first place. Yeah. Historic Julia has taught current Julia an awful lot of stuff. So this is what we want to be able to have a look at. So what are some of the themes that are coming through in your networks? And I really have no idea whether this is going to work and whether anybody can actually see anything. But I tried to do it. It's probably backwards and nobody can read it. But I've started in one area around a theme that for a long time was not important to me, which was my health. And a few people on this call know my health journey. First of all, with anxiety after having panic attacks and not knowing what it was. And secondly, a few years ago, having breast cancer. So all of a sudden, something that wasn't important to me, that I had very little connection to and very and really not a strong tribe in, to use Heather's words, was really obvious to me when I had two massive challenges around health. So over recent times, what I have done is tried to find a network, find people who I can connect with around both of those health challenges. So Tour to Cure for me was a really positive, proactive, you know, they're dealing with cancer and they're dealing with how they can research and support cancer in a really positive way that aligns really well with me. That's not to say that the 57 other ways, you know, 57 other cancer networks that are out there aren't doing that, but I found Tour to Cure and they were ones that really aligned with me. So I've rusted onto them now, and that's a way that I can support. Equally, you know, Off the Track Training is a network that I've joined, and I'm probably one of Joy's least active and engaged people in the group, but it's something that I do always check into. So what I've been able to do is really build out that health network of people that I didn't have. And that was really obvious that I didn't have when a couple of things happened in my private life. So I just want to kind of show how we can start to lump stuff together that it didn't exist. If I'd have drawn my network 5 years ago, none of these would have been here. But given some circumstances and given my understanding of what I actually needed to build, I've been able to build that into it. And you know, and that's been something that I can then support in different ways. Yeah. So from a health perspective, so that's from a personal perspective, I've been able to build out that network in the space that I want to be able to do. I just want to go to one other part of my network, and then let's open it up for some conversations. So if I go to the other side, and good luck trying to read this, sorry. But the other part that's really important to me is around economic development, and particularly the role of women in economic development, right? So it is no surprise I'm a member of QREN. It's no surprise I'm a member of a lot of chambers of commerce, that the boards that I'm on are around small business and regional development Australia. So my days of being on various local community committees, the picnic races, you know, lots of those kinds of things, they're kind of gone. I've parked that at the moment because I want to invest my time and energy differently, and because there are other people that can take that space. So one of the challenges, oh yeah. Sound. Have I gone?
Yeah, now you're back.
Am I back? Sorry.
Back. Yeah.
So sorry, where did you lose me? Will I just keep rolling?
Yeah, just keep going.
Until where you, yeah, okay. Keep going.
Okay. So one of the things that I want to be able to talk to you about in terms of the networking perspective is where we get to a point and we actually need to have a think about what is still serving us and what isn't. Because again, from a community perspective, what I hear lots of times is, oh, we have a community group that says, oh, we need more volunteers, we need more members, nobody ever takes this spot at the table. I've been the secretary or the treasurer for 107 years. None of these people want to be part of anything in the community, yeah? And on the other hand, I say, nobody ever tells us when the meetings are. At the AGM, the same people get in every year. I've been there a few times and asked for a job and nobody's ever given me a job and blah, blah, blah. So we can see there's a real disconnect there. So part of where some of the conversations that we end up having is around, well, who actually needs to still be at the table? And for a few of us on this call, we may still be at tables that really aren't serving us anymore. We're not actually building any skills. It's not really challenging us anymore because we've been there and we've kind of done that. And while we are there, is somebody else missing out? Is there a Jess Verning that's moved to town, or is there somebody, not that I'm going to dob you in for any committees here in Gundy, Jess, but is there somebody who's moved to town who would love to be able to have a seat at the table, but can't because we've got all of these stalwarts that have been there for 15 and 20 years, yeah? So we actually want to sometimes have a look and say, I got to a point and I was like, I do not need to be the sponsorship coordinator on these 3 committees. I know the businesses, I've got the relationships. I don't need to go and ask people for money. There's somebody new to town who would much prefer this job. The world will continue if Julia is not involved in everything. Step the heck back from the table, sister, yeah? And so that might be where a few of us actually can get some time back. So this evening, you have full permission to actually have a look at what is serving you still from a network. And if you are investing hours in something that is not on your important list, find something that is. I'm not suggesting we all stop volunteering. Rural and regional Queensland would stop altogether, right? So that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is we want to invest our time and energy in things that are really important to us. So what does that look like? And has stuff just rolled on without you realising that you're still on a kindy committee when you're actually looking after the grandkids on school holidays and you just have never really put two and two together? That's an extreme thing, and we're all far too young on this call to have too many grandchildren here. But I just want to raise a couple of these things so that we can have a conversation, right? So if we have got a network list and nothing really connects with anything else, there's not really any themes, have a think about that. Does that mean you've just got lots and lots of things that are important to you? Or have you by default ended up with a huge amount of time and energy going all over the place without necessarily being able to, you know, narrow your time and energy and focus that in on what it is that you find really important? How are you actually going to be able to move the needle on the things that are important to you if you're kind of scattergun approached all over the place doing all of these things? So I just want to raise a few of these things. I'm really keen to see what people respond with. I might have, you know, hit a bit of a soft spot for some, and you want to talk to me about this, and I'm really happy for that. But what I suggest is if we map out our networks, and what we have is a whole lot of stuff that's happening there that isn't on our important list, we want to be able to review that. And similarly, if we've got a whole list of what's important to us and we're yet to find out how we can find our tribe around that and find a group of people that want to, you know, that we want to hang out with because they're all interested in a similar thing than us, have a talk about that on this call as well. We are like-minded people on here. Chances are if you are missing something, if you want to connect in with a group who are very excited about three-eyed geckos, there could be another person that's already connected in with the three-eyed gecko brigade potentially on this call. So I want to kind of pause there for a second before we start having a chat and before we start talking through some stuff. And Lisa, I've just seen your note, so heads up, I might come to you for a little bit more on that. Can I get you to have a look at that networking list again and just have a think about if there's anything that you've forgotten? So is there a network that you're part of that you've forgotten and wasn't there when you did the first list? And also, if you've got any themes that you can see starting to come out, if there's any themes that are part of your networks that we can also circle. So I cheated a little bit, right? Because I knew what we were going to be doing. So I've kind of started lumping mine a little bit, and I'm conscious that I don't want my audio to go. But if I talk to you about what was important to me, and then I talk to you about what my network was, they fall for me into 4 categories outside of work clients, basically. So I kind of lump them separately again. But I have a women's theme, QREN, the Rural Woman, Inspiring Rare Birds, SheEO, etc. I have a business theme, RDA, Queensland Small Business Advisory Council, Chambers of Commerce. I have a sustainable ag theme, which is part of the business, so Ag Force and a local land care group. And importantly, I also have a vibrant theme. For me, it is really important. I said earlier, Tony and I don't have children, but we are really keen to be able to support, you know, the future generations in other ways. So we do some work with World Vision, we do some work with Smith Family. There's other ways that we can support children without having them ourselves. And I also seem to have inherited about 57 godchildren. So, you know, they do well from us as well. So we have these themes, and that's where I can then spend time and energy and know that that aligns. I don't have anything that I go to where I go, oh, Jesus, is that what it is tonight? You know, I'm off to such and such a meeting. This is going to be a drain. Those days were there for sure. They were there. But I can say now that they're not, and the world hasn't stopped turning. Those committees have found people and are doing things. There is work that is happening out in the world that is perfect, and yet I don't need to be a part of it. So this can be a really liberating exercise to do, to claw back some time for you that you can choose to keep and hold on to yourself, or at least or put into another network or another group that actually aligns with what it is that you're wanting to do. Okay, I want to stop talking and hand over to you. Lisa, Duncan, I was hoping we might be able to bounce to you first, just to talk to a little bit about the comment that you've popped in the chat there, maybe around why you've spent the last little while doing this, and even just some of the how did you untangle yourself out of some of the networks you were part of, perhaps. Are you happy to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I'm a classic yes to everybody person, can't say no. And for the last 12 months, I sort of have been really focusing on what my values are, what's important to me, as you've spoken about tonight, Julia. And I pretty much made decisions on what I wanted to continue being involved in based on that. And because I am a yes girl and can't say no, struggle to say no, I would just tell people, can I just, I'll just think about it. And then it would give me sort of 24 hours to get the courage to say, look, I really appreciate that, or I'm really honoured, but I don't have the time for that. And each time I've said that, it's got a little bit easier. Or even to the fact that, look, I can't be involved in that, or I'm unable to be involved in that, but I'm happy to give you a few ideas to get you rolling, is how I give some input but keep myself out of it, so I don't have to go to that meeting every Monday at 7:30 like you were saying. But very, very consciously have to say, you know, like my boys, I've been involved in their school, like you said, for 10 years. And could easily have stayed there when they left, but just did that cold, hard cut. And yeah, it was very difficult for me to do that each time, but in the very liberating once I'd made that decision.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks very much. Anybody else got any comment that they would like to make? Anything that they want to share, talk about, challenge? Jess, I love your comment about being on a 12-month committee ban. That's good. You know, that's something to be able to think about if that's what's needed, so that you don't get involved with stuff that you don't want to.
Yeah. And it was actually once I moved, which made it easier, because I was just like, nah, bye-bye, see you later. And I'm still the president of the preschool and the school at Garra. They just send me stuff every now and then, and I just don't have to attend the meetings because they're too lazy to change it over. So I have to sign checks and stuff. But yeah, and it's amazing how much effort I wasn't putting into our own business because I was too busy doing their stuff, and how much I've caught up, and yeah, since not doing that for them. We have an ability to feel really, really responsible for a whole chunk of community that's actually not ours to feel responsible for, right? And all the mothers on this call add all of that on again, I think, probably. So I am really conscious of that. But part of this is about what is serving you, and what's important to you and what isn't, you know. And maybe people just haven't joined that committee or haven't been part of a particular network because we're all there. We're all already at the table and there's no space for anybody else. Other thoughts or comments?
I think just practicing saying no to things is a really valuable skill generally. Absolutely. So Tim, can I ask you, what's a phrase, like I'm a
I'm a very literal person. I literally have things up on my wall saying, Julia, don't say yes to this. What's your phrase that you use to say no if somebody comes and asks you?
I don't have a phrase. I think the best way of doing it is just literally practice doing it. So just small things to start with. Because, you know, people pleasing is a huge problem. We're always worrying about what other people think, or they're going to be disappointed. And the great thing is when you try and do it, you're really worried about people being disappointed, and they very rarely are. We really blow ourselves up as being sort of so critical that no one else can do it. But usually what happens is that other people step up, and there's that space for them, as you were saying. And people aren't as disappointed as you think they're going to be.
Really good point. So, Lisa talked about it, and this whole sleeping on it. So can I get back to you in 24 hours, whatever that might be? That can certainly be one of those things that people use. Any other phrases anybody uses around this saying no?
I got told once, Misty, saying no is an act of love.
Yeah.
And that for me was really good, was to be able to say no was also an act of love.
Absolutely. Brené Brown has got a really lovely phrase, and it's something around saying no when you mean it with love is better than saying yes and living with regret, or something. She would say it much cooler in her Texan accent, but there's a really great phrase that she uses, and I think that's the thing. I will often joke about, you know, present Julia needs to make sure she doesn't give future Julia too many headaches. And really being able just to take a breath and think about, is this what am I going to regret this decision later, is certainly something to think about. The other part of this networking piece, and there's some really lovely comments coming through on the chat. Has anybody else got another comment or anything that they want to share around just getting some clarity around how to be able to remove from some networks before we move on to the next piece? We're all good. I'm just checking across the screens. We're all good. So the last piece of a network is the fact, so we've got what's important to us. We've mapped out a little bit of our network, and I'm kind of hoping that, you know, during your walk in the morning or over your morning cup of tea, you can have a bit of a think about this, and I'm really happy to work through with anybody on it. But the other part is around, how do we make sure that we are actively engaged in our networks? And one of the ways to do that, and one of the networks that I'm part of, they do it in a really simple way, and they say it's called the SheEO network. I don't know if anybody's come across it, but basically it's a fund where women fund project ideas of other women. So it's like an investment group that we get to, you know, women put forward project ideas, and other women get to say, yep, I'm really keen for my money to be put towards that project or that business idea that Robin's got. I really like that idea. I want my money to go to that. So that's one that's just started up in Australia. But one of the ways that they engage people, and this is something that, you know, QREN does in a few different ways, but it's around what's our ask and what's our give. How can we support the people that are in our network? But equally at times we need to draw on that. We actually might at some point need to ask for something, a favour, sharing some information, you know, looking after kids, whatever it might be. But what's an ask? And then what's a give? What's something that you can support or do? And so I wanted us to be able to practice on this call tonight, actually, because I think women are often very good at giving and helping and doing and everything for everybody else. But I think sometimes, hypothetically, perhaps maybe not so good at asking for help specifically around different things, or finding it awkward or uncomfortable. So we're going to have a practice tonight. So because we are part of QREN, we are part of this network where we are, you know, more or less engaged. We've got board members on here. We've got long-term members. We've got people that have been to every conference that's ever been, all of the rest of it. What I would love is for us to think about, first of all, what is something that you could give or do give to your networks? What is something that you give or could give to your networks. So you can specifically use QREN as an example, or any of the others on your list, but what's something that you give? And I'm going to put some stuff in here. Great, there's heaps of giving that's going on, right? So we're volunteering our time for specific things. We're listening, knowledge, connecting, all of the rest of it, yeah? So we're good at giving. That's coming through thick and fast. Now, ladies and gents, I'm going to ask, what do you ever ask of your network? What have you ever gone, hey, I need help with ... So when and what have you asked for? Is this more difficult? We seem to be slower on the chat. So some of this is time sensitive in terms of, you know, how long have we lived in a community or whatever it might be. Oh, Krishna, bookkeeper. Are you a bookkeeper? You're not a book, you're looking for a bookkeeper. You're looking for a bookkeeper, rightio. Who knows a good bookkeeper? Head them Krishna's way. So what we've got, so Julie, you're looking for advice. Is that something you're asking for, Julie Main? Robin needs a website builder. So all of a sudden, all the rest of us can bounce back into our giving thing again. Hey, Robin, I know 3 website builders. Hey, Krishna, I'm going to hit you up with a bookkeeper. So we can all of a sudden bounce back into our giving. It's practicing asking, I'm going to suggest, might be a struggle for a few of us on the call. Julie, you had advice. Julie Main, you had advice. What's the advice that you're looking for? You want to just, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Julia.
Hello,
everyone. So pretty much advice on going forward, pretty much advice about ideas, creative outlets, pretty much anything to do that the organisation can offer. Yeah, IT information, you name it. I just think your organisation or your networking system is there to ask advice, ask the questions, get help.
Yep. So it's a little bit like, you know, if you've got a friend or somebody says, do you want to come out? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And after you say no for so long, you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, I better say yes. I'll stop inviting me to these things anymore. And networks are a little bit the same. If we don't actually give anything to them, that's a challenge. Equally, if we don't actually use them, we need to think about that in terms of why we would, particularly for some of our networks when we're paying money for them, why would I keep paying for something I am not actually using in return? So we need to actually get good at asking what we could do. And so that could be as simple as at the end of these webinars or at the end of QREN events, there's a chance, you know, there's a chance for an ask and a give. The CEO people have got it on a website, you know, they've got it on a website where I can upload, hi everybody, I'm running a workshop here. Can you please share this with your network? That's my ask. So the language that they use is ask and give. QREN could come up with its own, but I actually think what makes our networks really strong is the fact that we are giving and equally receiving. We can actually ask for help. We can actually use our networks in a positive, in a productive way, because we know that something's important to us and we've aligned our networks with what's important to us. Why can't we bloody ask our networks that we need a hand with something? We need an idea. I need to be introduced to somebody or other who here knows, because you guys are going to help me be introduced without it looking really slimy and sleazy, yeah? I don't have an issue with any of that because I already have a pretty fair idea that people on this webinar are my kind of people, yeah? We all see networking for the same value. We all have already identified a whole range of values that are the same. And we've got some shared things that are important to us. why wouldn't I ask you guys what I need a hand with? Yeah, I'm in a safe space, really. I don't even need to know some of you, and I know I'm in a safe space. Now, I get to say that because I'm an extrovert and I say yes to everything, and there'll be a few people here going, hell no, I'm not asking a stranger for anything. And that's fine. We can work up to that. Let's start with asking people we do know and networks that we are part of, to be able to really think about this. But that's probably a bit of a random place to finish in terms of a networking webinar. But I really, really want to just challenge you about the other part of networking is to actually use it and actually ask for help. So Krishna, I am on to it for bookkeeping for you at Kuranda, right? You're from Kuranda? I think that was where Krishna said she was from at the beginning. So we are onto it. The call has gone out far and wide. So QREN as an organisation, have a think about it. You've got lots of members that are signing up to be part of it because they support and believe in what you're doing. Equally, what do they need support with, and how are they able to ask it? So I really just wanted to end on that and throw it open to conversations, to questions. You've got some forms, you've got some kind of worksheets, for want of a better word, that we've developed and used. But when you see them, you'll see that they're pretty similar to what we've talked about this evening. But I want to draw breath and really throw it open to you to have a look. Susan or Tim or Tracy, if you're still there, is there anything in the chat that I've missed? I'm just having a bit of a squiz through. Was there any question anybody asked in the chat that I haven't gone back to?
I think you covered it really well, Julia, from what I saw. If anyone has been missed,
yeah, that was great.
Speak up now, yeah.
Feel free to ask. Okay, so we haven't missed anything in the chat. Give me some. I'm gonna start Zoom roulette again, and I am going to pick on somebody and just get a bit of, just get them to sort of have a quick chat about what they are thinking, or if there's anything that's been a really sort of standout thought that they've had tonight. Erica.
If you like, I can.
Sorry, go. Sorry, Trace.
Yeah, that was Krishna.
Oh, Krishna, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I was going to say you've actually given me an idea. I'm involved with the contributing to a local paper, so I could actually put a call out there for from our committee. Yeah, we were passing the buck a bit, and it's a bit traumatic for me. So, yeah, and I'm sure somebody might just, you know, it's not huge, but it's just if it's not your thing, it's tricky. So I might use that. So that's a good thought. Thank you.
Brilliant. Krishna, do you want to pass it on to somebody else? Play Zoom roulette. Do you want to pick another person that we'll hear from before we wrap up?
I don't know. Is there somebody who'd like to speak up? Who haven't we had? Misty. Can't see Misty. Misty there?
I was going to pick on. Oh,
Erica,
yeah, there's
were
Misty.
you?
Yeah, no, I just didn't want to interrupt, so that's okay. Misty, go ahead if you like. And I
Sorry, I was in the middle of typing a message. What was it that you were asking me to do?
Just feedback. What's the thought you've had, an action that you want to do?
I think the two biggest things that I got out of this evening was being able to ask for help or ask for what you need and not feel guilty or bad about that, and to say no. Ask for help, say no.
Brilliant. Erica, what about for you?
Oh, I rather just give a feedback, if I may. I think it was really good how everybody got engaged and was brave enough to speak up and say what they have in their heart and in their mind. And I think that's exactly what this is about. And I really like the process, how you took everybody through that, rather than just looking at the paper, but actually just let's just get engaged and put it out there. because you may actually get something. So,
Brilliant.
Julia.
Thanks, Erica. Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, I reckon what you sort of, it's brilliant what you're doing, because after retiring, it's really hard to start again and build networks, because you had this instant network, which was, you know, the ABC audience. And then all of a sudden you've lost it, and it's sort of building the networks again. But I reckon that the idea, there's sort of an analogy to what you're talking about. It's like, if you want a quote to paint your house or a quote to polish your floor or to do your garden, you can go to mobs like One Flare or whatever, and you get a few quotes. I mean, you're putting out the ask, and then people are putting in the quotes, and in most of their cases, you make an assessment whether it's on price or whether you like them or quality or whatever, but the compatibility. And I reckon that if, you know, sort of, most of the time we're not afraid to do that, but when we're asking for something personal, like, well, for me, build a website or whatever, it's really hard. But if we sort of just disengage and do it like what you're telling me, it's almost like third party, put your hand up and say, look, I really need help with this. And if you get a few bites at the cherry, not all of them are going to work, but you don't need to feel embarrassed about being involved in a conversation, because you're actually, as you say, it's a bit of give and take.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's good, Rob, and I'm glad, because yeah, I think that's really useful. And we're all going to be thinking of people who we know who are good at making websites, yeah, but aren't going to cost $10 million and are something that we can understand, whatever it might be. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I'm glad that's been useful. Look, I'm conscious it's 8:28. Melissa, yeah, skills barter system, absolutely. We've got a closed QREN Facebook group, right? All Sisters of the North has got a closed group, you know, RFDS has got, you know, there's places that exist where we can ask this in a safe space. I'm not suggesting that our asks become our, you know, Facebook posts, you know, whatever it is, but we've got safe closed group spaces to be able to put some of this out there. And I just think, you know, there's power in vulnerability, as our friend Brene says. And I think if you're looking at the theme of these webinars, part of this is about, you know, what did Georgie say in the video? You know, we need to be able to go out in the wind and not blow over. But part of our being able to build our resilience and really look at that in terms of what are our strategies, and whether it's business or personal or health or whatever it is, we also actually need to be able to ask for stuff and we need to be able to build that skill. That's often for a lot of us a muscle that we don't use. We use our give muscle an awful lot, but we don't always ask our ask. We don't often use our ask muscle. We're going to be really careful. There's a K on the end of that. I am not talking about other muscles. Ask, A-S-K. Yes. I don't use my other ass muscles much either, to be fair. But anyway, I think I've left on a really good tangent. So with quite the image for everybody. So Suze or Tim or Tracy, I will hand back over to somebody who can, you know, get this back on track again.
Sometimes, Julia, you just might not just have, you just don't give an ass. So that's...
Yeah, that's right. I love it.
But no, look, Tracy... Sorry, Erica, you go.
No, you go, you finish.
I was just finishing up, so if you've got something else to say, you're most welcome.
No, I just thought, I think it was a really good idea about the ask and give, and maybe we have a board meeting next week, so maybe we can discuss how we could continue that topic through Korean and maybe on the Facebook page or some other way. So watch this space, we'll see how we go. Sounds like everybody interested in it.
I think you're right, Eric. I think this is like tonight's turnout has really struck a chord with people's interests. So Tracy did have to, she's still with us, but she's just minding Abby in the background. So just on her behalf, on behalf of Kieran and Sisters of the North and there with RFDS, we'd like to thank you for coming along again tonight. I hope you really enjoyed it. I think, I don't know, this has also been a challenge for me tonight, to basically that self-reflection. I don't give myself time enough to do that in the whole busyness of things. So yeah, thank you for the challenge, Julia. I love a challenge, so that's been great. So, but next week we've got two young health professionals are back into the health stream again next week about the psychology of exercise. And look, these two young guys, they are passionate. They've got loads of information to share. They just bring this vibrancy to them. And with their sessions, I've actually met with Jacob this morning. He's from Northwest Remote Health, and he is so excited, as well as Tom, so from Outback Futures. So please, if you, I know, for example, Kristen, she's a real fitness nerd. She's looking forward to it next week. So I'm going to dob you in there, Chris. You come with your questions ready. So, all right, everyone, have a great night, and thank you for joining in.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Have a good night.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, it was excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
The critical thing for rural women is to make sure that they're looking after themselves. As the expression, to make sure you've put on your own oxygen mask before you help other people. Being agile, not fragile, really means that you've got that, I guess, a suppleness and an ability to sway in the wind and not be blown over. I think it's important that we actually learn skills and techniques for managing the feelings that can sometimes be quite overwhelming, particularly when you're going through change and crisis.
In crisis, there is opportunity. I mean, the classic example of that, I think there was more millionaires made in the Great Depression than any other period in history. Having something to strive towards and having that sense that you're moving forward with your life is very, very important for your well-being.
This webinar series is an opportunity to get some new tools, but also to look at, are you maintaining the tools you've already got? How do you be in a position where you can take advantage of what the opportunities are coming out of a crisis?
Not only giving people great information about well-being, but also giving them some great information about how to improve themselves professionally. People have shown remarkable agility to deal with extraordinary demands, but it's also important that while people are doing that and running on full revs, that they are looking after themselves at the same time so they can maintain that resilience over time.
I think one of the important things about this webinar series is that the people involved understand rural Queensland, they understand rural people. You can have privacy, you don't need to identify yourself when you're asking a question. There's lots of opportunities, but you need to look after yourself so that you can actually take advantage of those opportunities and be in a position to look after the people around you and make sure they're ready for them too.